how my grandpa died from a heart attack and came back to life. My grandpa had a heart attack about 5 years ago. He was a semi-truck driver and was on the road driving late at night. He called my grandma, told her what was happening and that he thought he was having a minor heart attack. She got on the computer and searched up the closest hospital and told him it was 15 miles away, and he says that's alright, but now I'm driving to our hospital, I'll meet you there. Keep in mind he was about 3 hours from his town and where his hospital is. His stubborn ass drove for 2 hours and 15 minutes before having to pull over and evacuated by a helicopter to the hospital, and he began to have a major heart attack. That's why he had to pull over, and they brought him into the hospital and everything, and he died on the table, and they attempted to resuscitate him 3 times and they were questioning what they should do, and one doctor hit my grandpa in the chest with his fist and brought him back to life. Crazy. He is still alive and now tells everyone he is 5 years old because he died and came back to life. Amazing. Witnessed a healing miracle. My 43-year-old husband had a fever of 104.8. As a nurse, I knew this was serious and had to get him to a hospital. I couldn't get him off the couch. Although I'm a deeply spiritual person, I was brought up a different faith from him. First he asked me to call his pastor 500 miles away. I thought the fever was making him delusional. Then he asked me to call his son, who was also as far. I said I'm about to call an ambulance. Then he asked me to pray with him. Honestly, I might talk out loud like, please God help me, but that's just a saying I picked up and say, but never really expected him to answer. Actually at that point I didn't believe or disbelieve in God. To me God was nature, the universe, and something bigger than I could comprehend. I felt bad as I saw the disappointment in his face, that I didn't know what he was really asking me to do. As I was about to call 911, he sat up and started talking gibberish. Oh boy, I thought he had some infection of the brain. I became frightened because to me, he sounded like some demon-possessed creature right out of a Hollywood scene. Then all of a sudden I felt this enormous amount of energy force fill the room. A haze of indigo and white lights began glowing all around us. I had absolutely no idea what was happening. The indigo light appeared to form a figure and hover toward my husband. I thought I was going to pass out and drop the phone. Then as fast as this started, it dissipated. My husband got up and asked what's for dinner. I was shaking and started to cry. I went over to him and his fever was gone. It was a normal 98.6. This was impossible. We went to the hospital anyway and all his labs came back completely normal. I did not tell him even what occurred because I thought everyone would think I was crazy. Later on life I did tell him, and he said what I witnessed was the Holy Spirit. I was not a practicing Christian at that time, but I have had seen other miracles in the past and also many times afterwards. I might share with another site. Has anyone heard of a similar story or shared a similar occurrence? Thank you for sharing. God bless. Kelvin Santos, the miraculous Brazilian child. It is the strangest story of the return from death at all. That incident with the child of the year Kelvin Santos can only be described as a miracle. Otherwise, they gave me a convincing reason that a child who does not exceed 2 years will die of a natural death, and before his burial hours he wakes up to take a glass of water and then die once others, as if nothing was, and certainly you imagine the amount of surprise and shock that hit all the audience. That surprise, which of course exceeds your surprise now as you read what happened to the child. It was a Friday night when Santos was very short of breath, and it was only a few hours before the child died of respiratory failure. Everything seemed fine here, but what happened next at the funeral was a miracle. The father, in a coffin and preparing for burial, suddenly woke up and then asked his father to bring a glass of water for the ascension. Of course, the father was in shock and joy at the request of his son, who returned from the death, but the child took the water back to his place and lay dead again, as if he were asleep, and woke up. In the hospital, he was overwhelmed when the father told the doctors what had happened. Without many witnesses it would have been possible to take the father to the insane section. But they re-examined the child and assured his father that there was nothing abnormal and that his child had died. Finally, the father filed a complaint against the hospital administration, accusing them of negligence and inability to determine the correct time for the death of his child. Miracle today. Today I ran out of gas while driving home. I pulled my vehicle to the side of the road and proceeded to walk for 10 minutes. Then a man picked me up and drove me home, and I didn't have any money on me, so he gave me money for gas. Afterwards I went to my local gas station and brought a container not sweetened to fill gas. An old man sees me and offers to bring me a gas can from his house, using the money donated by the man that picked me up and the old man's container. I was able to fill up enough gas to walk home. I walked to my car, and on the highway a patrolman picked me up and drops me off to my car. I was able to get home as a result of help from my fellow man and feel very fortunate that I didn't need to get my car towed. I believe in this case a higher being helped me get home, and this experience has led me to believe there is a higher power or being helping people at times. You might want to read Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. That time my laptop fixed itself for me. One day, I was playing The Witcher 2, Assassin of King's Ancient Edition, and my aunt tells me to close the window upstairs since it's raining. As I move my laptop from my lap, it shuts down out of nowhere. Man, I think to myself, since I saved, and I can just turn it back on. So I close the window and head back down and continue my game. When my aunt tells me to put the laundry in our room upstairs, I comply and the same thing happens, shut down out of nowhere. But this time, it didn't turn on after doing my chore. No lights from the charger led either. I freaked out and told my cousin. No help at all. Just laughed at me and bragged about his working laptop. So a week or so passes and we moved back from my grandma's house. I start tinkering with the laptop to see if I can fix it. By tinkering I mean trying to remove the battery and plugging it in without the internal battery. There was a problem though. I couldn't remove one of the screws. It was too tight. I gave up, and after a week of class starting, I decide to plug it in just to disappoint myself. Lo and behold, I see the charger LED light up. I press the power button and voila, here I'm writing this post. This isn't that big of a miracle, but it is to me, since without classes or my laptop, I have nothing to do.